we have some news today, college football news, and it's breaking from the Houston Chronicle, and they're reporting that the administration from the Oklahoma Sooners, the University of Oklahoma, and the University of Texas have reached out to the SEC about potential membership. And this is big news. Conference realignment really shook up college football several years ago, seeing the likes of Texas A&M go to the SEC, Missouri as well, Nebraska going to the Big Ten. We saw Maryland, saw the Big East go from being a Power 6 school to being, basically just now, a non-football type school. There's talk of half the Big 12 going to the Pac-12. So conference realignment is always a big thing. And it's interesting to see what it's going to evolve to, because back in the day, it was all about cable contracts. You wanted, these conferences wanted these programs in there for cable, and that's why the Big Ten went out and got Rutgers, is they wanted the Big Ten network to be covered and carried in New York City. Not that they knew that they were going to get New York City fans saying, oh, we love Rutgers football, but they wanted the Big Ten network to be on cable systems in New York City. Well, with streaming being what it is, cables just, subscribers dropping, it's curious to see what the guys, is it just you just want to load up your conference so you have quality teams to get more teams into it, whatever it may be. But the fact that we have potentially rumors, speculation that these two teams have reached out, that's big news. Now, for the SEC, this would be a tremendous get. You're not getting a Maryland, you're not getting, these lower level, it's not like you're stealing someone from the ACC that's at the bottom and it's not a good program. You're getting Oklahoma, a team that is perennial college football playoff program. I mean, every year you could pencil Oklahoma in because they're gonna, you think they're gonna win the Big 12, and they compete at a high level. And they haven't had a whole lot of success in the college football playoff. I don't think they haven't won a game yet. They've only been competitive in one of those games, but they're still, I still think they're one of the 5 best programs in college football right now, bar none. Then you get Texas. Texas is Texas. I don't think that their reputation and their, the mystique around them, I don't think is as good as what people think it is. But they're still a big name. They still command. They got a big alumni base. They're the flagship university in Texas. Okay, getting those two would be huge for the SEC. Absolutely huge. You bolster up their conference. I mean, they probably, how they redid it, but can you imagine an SEC West with Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, LSU, Arkansas? You might lose Alabama and Auburn to the other side, but at least one of them, who knows? Maybe Missouri. Missouri's already over there. But regardless, it's huge for the SEC if it happens. Make them go up to 16 teams, and then would that cause other? The Big Ten? They're at 14 right now. Would that cause them to go up to 16? The Pac-12, would that cause them to maybe add a few more? And we get these 16-team super conferences that we've heard and maybe mentioned prior. Now, I'm a little skeptical of this. There's rumors out there that the A&M said, "Hey, we are going to be the only SEC team in the state of Texas." I don't think that's gonna. I don't think that the SEC is going to be like, oh, "Okay, we promised you that. We handshake agreement deal with that." If they have a chance to get these two teams, they're breaking that. Now, another stumbling point that I kind of want to point out is when there's this whole speculation of teams going to, the Big 12 teams, Oklahoma, Texas, and that going and leaving to different conferences, there's always this notion of, would you let the other teams go? I know when the Southwest Conference ended and those Texas and all those schools came to the Big 12, they had to bring Texas Tech and Baylor and all those teams with them. And when there was that talk of the Pac-12, they said, well, you can't, that would diminish those other schools, so Texas had to take them with them. Is that still in play? Because I can't imagine a team like Oklahoma State, Oklahoma leaves their conference, and they're just going to be sitting there with, sitting in the Pac-12 or sitting in the Big 12 there, that significantly diminishes, I think, Oklahoma State and some of those other schools. And so that gets me to that point. What if this happens? What is this going to do for the Big 12? I think this crushes the Big 12. You're losing by far your elite team in Oklahoma and probably your biggest, your second biggest name. Yes, Iowa State is probably the second best program in the Big 12 right now. I don't even think that's debatable. I think they're closer to being number one than whoever number three is to being number two. But now you're losing Oklahoma and Texas, and your brand names in the Big 12 is Iowa State, Oklahoma State. I mean, nothing against those two programs, but they don't have the same cachet, and there's nobody out there. Who are you going to go get? Cincinnati, yes. Cincinnati is a tremendous program under Luke Fickell. Central Florida, ever since Scott Frost took over, and then Heupel, and now we'll see what Gus Malzahn does, they've built that into a top team. So is the Big 12 going to go out and try and poach the top teams in the AAC? Are they going to try and go get Boise State? I mean, is that going to replace what you had in Oklahoma and Texas? I don't think it is. And none of those are great geographical fits either. So I think this is a death knell for the Big 12. And that was the thing, that was talked about not too long ago, that, with teams, potentially going to the Pac-12, the Big 12 would collapse. And that's one of the reasons why Nebraska was willing to leave the Big 12 to go to the Big 10, because they wanted that stability. There's been some talk about Nebraska coming back. It's not going to happen to the Big 12. That's definitely not going to happen with Oklahoma and Texas leaving. So what happens to these Big 12 schools? I'm sure that the Big 10 is still looking to improve their footprint, but I don't think they're going to go for an Iowa State. I don't think they're going to go for an Oklahoma State. I think if the Big 12 or Big 10 was going to come into the Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma were the two teams they wanted. Kansas, I think, for their academics and their basketball program, I think Kansas would be a logical fit. Is the Pac-12 going to want to take these teams? Are they going to want to come and get Oklahoma State and that if they are, if it's just them alone? I don't think so. So I think the Big 12 stays there, but I think they become a little bit more of a group of five team or conference than that of a Power 5. And so I think that would be, like I said a few times already, a death knell for the Big 12 if this were to happen. Now, I am very skeptical. I don't know if it's going to happen. I very well could be wrong. But I think you might see status quo. I think those schools would like to get in the SEC because of the money and the stability and the prestige. But, it'll be interesting. I'm holding my breath. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm fine being wrong. But it should be interesting to see how it all plays out.